And welcome. What's happening, folks? How you guys doing this week? Look a little green this week. I don't know why. It's not me, I swear. What's happening? What's going on out there in internet land? Got the coffee going. So I wasn't that active on the old YouTubes this week. That's going to change. I got a little bit more coming up. Things to do before I get out of here. There's some pedal demos that I need to do. Some really cool. There's a fuzz and I've got a pedal here that's a combination of I believe it's a verb, a trem, and a drive all in one. That's pretty cool. And then a couple other pedals from a company called, I believe it's Karma. There's a bass drive and an overdrive from them that I've been doing the same video. So those are coming. What did I do this week? I did get a video out for the Ottawa, little play on words, or I don't know what you call that. Ottawa from Carl Martin. And it's an Ottawa envelope follower. And it's super funky, all analog, sounds great. It's optical. That was a fun one to do. Something different. Don't get a lot of envelope follower, pedals that come across my desk. So it was fun. I remember years ago, I bought one of those original Ibanez Ottawas. It was kind of like a beige color, and I guess they were it was like one of my music store finds, or like that was, super underpriced. It was like $25 I bought it for from Guitar Center in, where was it? In Azusa, I think. And just happened to see it out there one day, and I bought it, not really knowing what it was. And they were quite coveted. I think they were going for like $250 or $300 or something. Anyways, I had that thing and used it for a while. It was pretty cool. I kind of like I've actually made use of envelope followers over the years, more in just like a necessity kind of thing. There's been times where, two different times, excuse me, where artists needed me or wanted me to play like upstage and like be with them from like a visual aspect, play a guitar solo, but they wanted me to do a wah solo. And it's like those two things don't really work together. It's like, well, I have to be by the wah pedal then. And so like out of necessity, there was a couple times where I used a envelope follower patch in order to be able to play the wah solo while I was like center stage with the artist, so those are my two times I can remember ever using that sound live, because it's sort of a polarizing sound. I guess it's that super funky, I can think of a one track, that Edie Brickell song. You remember that song? What I am is what I am. No, that song has that crazy solo in it that I think is envelope follower, and it's such a neat sound outside of the usual kind of porno movie funk 70s sound. You know what I mean? That maybe it's time to like open up the Ottawa to other styles of music, other genres. I want to hear an Ottawa in a country song. That'd be cool. How come nobody plays wah in country music at all? That's just not a staple on the country pedal boards, is it? I want to hear somebody do a wah country solo. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah. All right. What else we got here? Ottawa also, Ben Coombs, he'll appreciate that. I think he's somewhere close to Ottawa, isn't he? Speaking of Ben Coombs in Canada, and I'll announce this again later, but I would like to say that, and I believe it. Let me just check my calendar here and make sure. I would like to say, I believe it's next week that I've got a special guest coming on. Yep, it's next. I'm just going to confirm it, but I'm pretty sure it's next week that it's going to be Kim Mitchell on the show. Canadian rock and roll legend coming on my show. So I believe it's next Sunday. And I'll put up the watch page for that real early this week. Probably tomorrow or something, get it going, because that one's going to be special. Now, for those of you out there that maybe don't know Kim, if you're in Europe or somewhere else where you haven't heard his music, or even in the States, you know, there might be lots of folks that maybe don't know him, but in Canada, he's rock and roll royalty and an absolute legend. And he's an amazing guitar player. Folks like Paul Gilbert cite him as an influence because he was doing really unique things in a rock and roll guitar context, like in the late 70s, you know, the early 80s. He was doing these kind of really interesting solos and it kind of, you know, proto, I don't want to say shred, but, you know, he had some like great, he's got great feel on the guitar and great phrasing, but he was doing like these, you know, fast sixes kind of stuff on the guitar that was really unique and cool. And I loved it. It was a big influence on me when I was a kid. So I'm just overjoyed he's going to come on the show, and really, really excited about that. So going to get some great questions for him, and I'm sure it'll go like, you know, it's just going to fly by. But so he is a Canadian legend, says Stealth Parrot. Absolutely. Absolutely. I know, exciting stuff, right? So I'll announce that again later because we've only got about 179 people online, which is great. I'm happy to have you all here. It's an intimate crowd, but later on there'll be folks that missed that, and I'll say it again. Ben, remind me to say it again. Yeah. You need to string up some patio lanterns in your studio. Exactly. For those that don't know, that was a classic Kim Mitchell track in the late 80s. I'm so excited about that. Anyway, that just makes me happy even just thinking about it. Is there going to be any more Van Halen stuff, says Ethan? I guess you mean this gig that I'm doing in Destin on the 9th with my friend Mitch Malloy. We're just kind of testing the waters. We're going to go have some fun, play this show and see how it goes, because none of us have ever played together. So we'll go do it, and then hopefully it'll be a hoot, and then maybe we can do more. I just, I'm most excited about playing the songs. Something I've never done. It's a unique challenge for me. It's definitely a challenge, but it's really fun, and it's been good for my playing, and that's a good thing. It's always good to challenge yourself. I took another thing that I was on the fence about. It's a gig in Wisconsin, and it's coming up. I believe it's the 4th week or 3rd week of October, and I don't really understand actually what it is yet exactly, but I believe it's some sort of I think it's a play of some sort, like stage play of some sort, but they're using a full band and video, and there's a total rock band of really great players they've got doing it. And somebody backed out of it, and then a friend of mine hit me up and said, would you be interested in doing this, because it's getting kind of last minute, and the pay was decent, and it's a week with friends, work. And I thought, my initial thing was I don't know, and then I thought, what the hell, I should probably go do this, because it's I've got a lot of work to do around here, but it might be good for me just for my state of mind and stuff to get out of town for a minute. It's been so long since I've been anywhere, and so at this point I'm spending at least half of October out of town, and it's forcing me into I think it's good for me right now. Just my state of mind has been a little, you know what I mean? With everything, all the stress that all you guys are dealing with too. Just, this weird kind of state that we're in here, getting towards the end of another year, 2021. It's crazy, right? How this year is just strange. And I thought, I got to get out of here and mix it up a little bit. So that's part of the reason why I'm doing the Van Halen themed gig with Mitch, all that music. And then also this other thing, I'll throw myself right into another thing right after that for a minute. And just, it's going to be about, I'll only have a few days to learn the music, and then go to Wisconsin, and then go do this other gig where it's, 13 or 14 tunes or something. So anyways, it's good, right? So I hate it when people come to me last minute, said Zed. Well, it's not exactly last minute. I mean, it's more than it's a month away now, a little less than a month for the rehearsals, but no big deal. What is the difference between positive and negative feedback in amplifiers? I'm not an amp tech, but I don't think there is a term positive feedback. Basically what negative feedback is you're introducing some of the signal from the amplifier back into the there's a feedback loop. I don't really understand it, but it has the effect of chilling out the amplifier a bit when you it kind of if there's any oscillations or like unstable, like, and the effect of negative feedback, it just kind of smooths the effect on the sound is, to me, it smooths the sound a little bit. It seems to drop the level a little bit, because I think what you're doing is you're bringing in some of the signal back into the amplifier, and it makes things out of phase a little bit, which you would think, oh, that's not good, but it actually has the effect of kind of chilling out the amp and smoothing things out a little bit. And it can be a cool thing, like on the sound, the effect of the sound. But I don't think there's a positive. They call it negative feedback for some reason. I don't know why. If there's an amp tech out there, they could explain it. My amp has a negative feedback control on the back that allows you to adjust it from a range that is probably similar to, well, I mean, you can get it up to where there's almost no negative feedback, and then down to the range of where probably some amps that have maybe the most negative feedback out there on the market have, so there's a pretty wide range of that sweep of that pot that allows you to really, I generally like it about in the middle, which is sort of a standard sort of Marshall value. There's some amps out there that have no negative feedback, like the Vox AC30 is probably the best known example. Fred from Divided by 13, he's always a proponent of no negative feedback. He didn't really like it. But then again, I will say that a couple of his amps that I've tried, for instance, the LDW 37, I believe it was called, 50-watt sort of Marshall-ish affair, no negative feedback. And it would actually oscillate when I had the gain up high and the treble up high. And I said, Fred, this is like, it's kind of like goes crazy here. What is this sound? He's like, oh, just don't set it like that. I learned later it was like that there's no negative feedback in the circuit, and the amps can oscillate and kind of go crazy when that happens. And so that was his kind of, that was his response to me. So I haven't talked to Fred in a long time. I miss him. But anyways, thanks for your great tips every Sunday. Enjoy some good coffee. 777 Danny. Thank you. Appreciate you being here. I do. And we've also got Sean there in the super duper chat. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Thanks for being here. And VBoss, what's up? I know you installed a non-fine tuner Floyd on one of your Sir Classic Strats. How would you compare that with a Wilkinson? Well, it was cool. But it's more of a, I guess if you're used to a Floyd and the feel of a Floyd, it would be really cool. For me, coming from a Fendery bridge, that's the Goto 510, it's more of a different feel and an adjustment. And it's not such a direct drop-in replacement. So it's more of a effect on the tone. You cut the ball ends off to restring. It's like you got to drill the holes for the Floyd. It's not a retrofittable kind of, so it's still like this commitment that you got to make to going to the Floyd. Once you kind of put it on the guitar, I feel like there's a bit of no going back. Not as much as like a Kaler or something. Remember those where it's like you're really routing out the guitar. But it was a bit more work and problematic. The guitar is pretty cool, but I wish it hadn't been back routed, because it was back routed for the Floyd. And that's just something that they normally do. And I didn't specify that, but it got back routed, and that kind of was like, oh, that's not what I wanted. I kind of just wanted the Floyd, like, like a Fender bridge, relatively flush with the body. Because of the height of the, the way the bridge sits on the body with a Floyd, it can be a little high because of the height of the saddles and the plate and everything. So there's a lot involved when you're like trying to, put a Floyd on a guitar and kind of retrofit. You might have to shim the neck to now get the neck up at more of an angle because the bridge can sit a little higher, or how, it's like all this stuff. So long story short, if you're coming from a Fender bridge or a Goto bridge or something like that, I would recommend, if you're like, yeah, I want walking saddles, go to the Wilkinson, because it's so easy. It's just really, really easy to put on the guitar, to the point where if you've got a six screw plate traditional, you can just get the saddles and put them on. It's much less of a major operation. than putting a Floyd on a guitar, to me. The tone changes a little bit. The feel changes. Everything changes a little bit when you put a Floyd on, you know. Now, that said, I've been playing Floyds a lot lately because I've been getting ready for this Van Halen show with Mitch, Van Halen themed show, you know. And it's, you know, it's all Floyds all the time, decked. And I bought one of those trem setters for the red, white, and black guitar that allows the block to come back and rest against the, because I did find one thing on the EVH guitars is that the posts are not drilled all that deep. So if you want to get the, I mean, I guess they're maybe as deep as they can go, but a lot of this stuff is due. Floyd is like a balancing act, like the geometry of like how high the neck is in the pocket and how far down you can get the saddles, and then how the back leaning against the body and all that stuff. When you're not doing a back route, it's all very kind of like, you know. So anyways, I ended up putting a shim in this guitar. So it's got a small shim, just a business card under this end of the neck. And then I was able to get the bridge. The saddles are backed almost all, like pretty much all the way down, if not all the way, with the shim in there. And that got the action to really low and where I wanted it and all that. And I've got 2 springs in these. I'm using 9 to 40, just like Ed did. You know, you can't see the springs in this one, but it's 2 springs. It's actually a little, this one's a little stiff. I could actually loosen it a little bit, but it's fine the way that it is. And it's, you can hear it coming back against it's back against the body with this one. For whatever reason on the other one, I couldn't get the posts quite, it was like the posts need to be a little higher on the other one. So I think I shimmed it too. And the bridge was sitting too far back for the detuner. Like in other words, it was angled a bit and then the detuner would hit the body. And so that wasn't working. So I got a trem setter for that, and I've got it set flat now, and it backs against the trem set. That works fine. The only thing about the trem setter, this one does it a little bit, but the trem setter is a hard piece of metal that you screw into the back of the guitar, and then the block hits it, and it's got a screw that it backs up against, and it kind of goes clunk every time it hits that thing, you know, and it's a little severe. It works fine, but it's, you know, it just has a little bit of a knock to it every time it hits that. I got used to it. It's no big deal. It was bothering me at first, and then I was like, oh, it's fine. Who cares? So, yeah, Chef Jeff says negative feedback is what you find on Yelp. Yeah, right. Prince Westerberg's got an explanation here. It adds an inverted signal to the input of the amp, I believe of the power amp, right? And when you say the input of the amp, I think just the power amp section, and flattens out the frequency response, but you don't actually need it. It's a 1950s hi-fi thing. Well, whether or not you need it is kind of dependent on, you know, Marshalls have it, some more than less. You know, a Jose thing was to kind of lessen it a little bit. Where you take it, the tap you take it off makes a difference. The 4 ohm tap, this 8 ohm tap, the 16 ohm tap, and then the value, you know, for instance, the Eddie Van Halen thing was 100K off the 4 ohm tap, supposedly. And that was a Jose thing that you see on a lot of his amp. They take the negative feedback off the 4 ohm tap, and the value was 100K. So whatever that, you know, a little bit more of a typical Marshall value, I guess, is 47K and more. So that adds up to more negative feedback. I don't really understand this stuff, but I sort of understand it. I generally like 47K off the 4 ohm tap on an old Marshall. That sounds about right to me. On my Germino, I've got a switch to go from 47 to 100 on the back. So if I want a bit more of the Van Halen thing, I go to 100. But you say you actually don't need it. The sound of the amp with the 100K off the 4 ohm tap on the Germino with its extra gain in the front end from the Jose thing, it's a little bit, I don't want to say, like it'll sound a little wilder with the 100K off the 4 ohm tap, less negative feedback, a little wilder, a little harsher, a little bit, you know, and then the 47K tends to chill it out a little bit, and it sounds a little more controlled and a little more together. So I guess if you were design, you know, I would say that it's all things matter in the amp design. And if you design an amp to have no negative feedback, like an AC30, you know, if all the component values and everything are designed to work with that style of power amp, then it's great. But you can have an amp that, plenty of amps like my PT100 aren't designed that, you know, really it's a standard Marshall thing to have some negative feedback. So if you got a Marshall style power amp, output transformer and all the, you know, whatever, all the accoutrements that go with a Marshall style power section, my understanding is some negative feedback is part of that, you know. And if you don't have it, then it can sound maybe it works, but like I say, my divided by 13, my LDW was unstable to the point where I couldn't set it a certain way on the controls, and or it would oscillate. It had this weird distortion, like, and it was like, what is that? It's broken. So you have to design the amp to, you know, to work with no negative feedback, in other words. So there you have it. It's my story, and I'm sticking to it. What's this we got here? I think I already answered that, didn't I? I believe I did. Thank you, VPOS. Okay, do you have any experience with Laney amps? Well, my one experience with Laney amp was with a vintage Laney supergroup that I was literally going to the store to buy, and it got bought out from underneath me. It sounded unbelievable. It was like a 68, you know, like Plexi style, you know, like the supergroup, like they were very much like a Plexi, and it was loud as shit. It sounded unbelievable. And I got to the store, and they said, we just sold it like an hour ago. And I was like, oh, man. So I never got it. It's my only experience with Laney. I loved it. It just sounded incredible. So the one that got away for a vintage amp, I probably still have it to this day because I've kept everything that pretty much. Yeah. All right. Yeah, Mark says the negative feedback loop wraps around the power amp. Yeah. It's a power amp thing. Just bought an SL68, says P Music, and I'm blown away by the clean sound, especially with my Classic S. Cool. How do you set yours up for great cleans? Well, you can actually set the EQ. One of the tricks to get it to be clean is, well, first of all, I would jumper because you lose a little gain when you do that, which is helpful for getting it to sound cleaner. But beyond that, setting the EQ lower, especially the mid-range, set it down around like 2 or 3, and you're going to find the amp is cleaner at the higher settings on the volume controls, because the EQ on a Marshall is lossy on a Plexi style amp. You know, if you were to remove the EQ from the circuit, it would all of a sudden you get way more gain out of the front end, which would not necessarily be a good thing. It might not, you know, it might work, but that's one of the things with the EVH kind of spec. His amp was weird because it had a 50K mid pot instead of the standard value 25, and that 50K mid goes towards that lifting the EQ out of the way of the circuit, as I understand it. So with the EQ, like one time I lent my amp to my 50 watt back there, the one you can see there in the rack. I lent that to Dave Grissom, and I found the settings really interesting when I got it back, because he had it. It was obviously set up to be jumpered with the, you know, the volumes on like about 3 and 2 or something on the normal channel and the other channel. He must have been using it with pedals maybe, and the EQs were all really low, around 2 or 3. And I plugged it in. I thought, what's that sound like? Because I hadn't really ever tried one like that. I thought, I'm always setting the EQ up higher than that, you know, up above 5 almost on everything. Sometimes the treble and the presence down of 4, you know, for certain sounds. But turning the midway down, it's like, oh, it's like a gain control almost. So anyways, give that a try. If you want the most headroom, you know, you're going to probably on the SL68 in particular, going to want to use the 120 volt setting, the high power setting for clean sounds. And but it's a great amp clean, you know. It sounds really great. And if you want to get a really Hendrixy thing going on, put a fuzz face in front and then roll down the volume on your guitar, and you'll get this magic. You roll the volume down to 8 or 7, and it's going to be stratty as all hell with you know, all the high end chime coming in and stuff that you'll get out of the fuzz, you know, or like a nice germanium fuzz face clone, or don't run anything else in front of the fuzz face, no buffer. You can get some incredible cleans that way. Yeah. What do we got here? This fella says he ordered a DiMarzio 59. Is that like the DiMarzio, the 36th anniversary ones or whatever? Or the, can't remember if that's what Tracy said he had. Different PAF varieties. Yeah. Okay, what else we got here? Have you met Dan yet? Dan's the fellow that I'm doing the Mitch's Van Halen tribute show with. I haven't. Well, you know, we may have met. But I see him, and it's hard to remember sometimes because of the internet. Because he plays with Phil X and the Drills, and I see him with Phil, you know, in videos and stuff. And so I feel like I know him, you know, and I may have met him with Phil at some point. I just can't remember if we've ever met in person. You know, where you feel like you've met people, you know. So, but really, the first time certainly that we're going to get to play together is rehearsals coming up in, I guess, a little over a week. Yeah. Let's see here. What else are you guys talking about? You guys are talking about chili and chicken and all kinds of stuff. How does the tone change when a floating term is? When a floating term is, if you float a tremolo and you don't block it, I just feel like the tone gets a little more solid when you block the trem. Like you hear a little more resonance all the time. And how that translates through the pickup, I guess, depends on what you're using and how much distortion you use and stuff. But there's certainly a thing that happens. I was always amazed. I had this trem setter on a guitar, which was kind of a finicky device, and I ended up not really liking it. But it was interesting. It would replace the middle spring in the back on a Strat style trem or Floyd or something. And it had these thumb wheels on it that you could tighten, and you could do different things with it, where you could either have the trem full floating up and down, block it so that it would sit flat, or disable the tremolo action altogether and kind of make it so that it was a fixed bridge. I don't know how it did it, but something to do with the mechanism in this thing that would replace the middle spring. When I would block it or lock it so that you couldn't use the trem, the guitar had an instant different, because it was neat because you could experiment with it, you know, and take it off and on. You could listen. It's hard to do that directly with, you know, it's right, you know, like go back and forth in a second. So it gave you this instant kind of like, you know, A-B of those sounds. And it always sounded like a bit more solid and sustained and more resonance as soon as I would lock it. So that was interesting. But there's guitars that I have that I just don't do that on, that live in floating land, you know. Most of my guitars, my signature guitar, I should say, I've always got the bridge floating so that I can pull up like a whole step on the G. I just like it like that for vibrato mainly. I don't do a lot of like, I do some pulling up like with the single notes, but it's more like the vibrato of chords, Alex Lifeson style, the way that he used to use a tremolo. I just do a lot of that. So I like the bridge to float for that. And then on my old Strat, I've got the bridge set more like a Jeff Beck. So it's like up quite a bit. So I can pull up maybe a minor third on the G. And they just live like that. They don't even think about it. I just leave them like that. You know, I like having guitars set up both ways. Like I like fixed bridge guitars. I like floating, and I like them to be sometimes blocked or only for downward, like Eddie Van Halen style. For that music, you have to have it like that. I've always played with relatively low action, but I keep hearing whispers of high action and light strings like eights. Oh, I've never tried that. High action and eights doesn't even. That's I do low action and light strings. I don't want the thing to fight me these days. I love the feeling of the guitar being really easy to play. It makes me faster. It makes me. I'm fine with it. I'm not the heavy string guy. It's just, you know, for me, I don't know. It's just how I am. You know, I like low action and nines these days, honestly. I'm probably just going to go to nines all the way around. Good morning from Australia. Any word on release of your 2-note IR packages? So yes, coming up pretty soon. Thanks, Sessions with Jeff, for the super chat. Coming up pretty soon. I believe it's the beginning of December. So you know, couple more months and you'll have them. So not too far out. They got pushed back a little bit just due to some other releases and kind of Black Friday stuff and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, we're looking at definitely within 60 days they're coming out. So, and they sound really good, I must say. Jennifer Preachy, your VH vids are killing me. God bless you. Thank you. I appreciate it, Jennifer. Thanks for being here. Always. Always, always, always. Yeah, all right. What else we got here? Life is too short for heavy strings. You know, yeah, I just kind of like it's, you know, the Van Halen thing is really like in playing the music, setting the bridge the way he does and getting the right string gauge, even using the picks. I'm using the pick. Where's this pick? I got it here somewhere. Uh-oh. See, if I don't have it, then I get worried because it's like, oh, I have one. Oh, no, that's not quite the right one, but it's very similar to this one. That's why I have it in my pocket. It's a nylon with the grip. These are the picks he was using later in his career, I guess, and like similar to this. And so it's kind of a soft pick. They're even thinner than this one, and with the grip on them. I started using them, and there's something about these that, like, I really like for his style of thing. You can be kind of aggressive with your right hand, and with the light strings, haven't broken any strings, knock on wood, doing it, you know, you can lay into the guitar. And when you're playing some of the stuff, like the rakes and the, you know, a lot of the stuff, the pick gives a little, and it's less through the strings. And it's like, oh yeah, that just kind of works for this actually. And so I started using his signature picks. If anybody's tried them, you might've been surprised by them, because it's like, oh, really? Like this, he uses picks this thin, you know, but I guess he did, you know, that was his thing, was that style of pick for. So, and evidently I think back in the day it was just Fender mediums. I think back in the 70s, like good old, you know, Fender mediums, I think. Arthur, what's up, Arthur? Arthur there in the super chat. Here's something to add to the coffee fund. Hey, keep me caffeinated so that I can keep blah 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 blabbing on here. How can I start developing skills for improv, scales, modes, or are intervals enough? The first thing that just came to mind right now is my buddy Quist, who's a good friend of mine. He has a studio very close to mine here. And you might have seen him on QUIST. If you haven't seen him on YouTube, check out his channel. He's really great. He does a lot of lessons and teaching, and also on Instagram, quick, fast concepts. Like he did the one this week that was really great on melodic minor combined with kind of the blues scale or pentatonics. And so it's like how melodic minor relates to the blues. And it was really, really great. And I got one little thing out of it that was really, like, for example, if you're in, like he was doing this kind of move, say you're in E. So he was doing this combinations of these sounds. Like, and so you get the, yeah, like, does that make sense? Like, there's your root, and so you get the 6, the flat 5, the major third, and the 9. And then if you slide down into the pentatonic position here, you get just major pentatonic, right? So, you know, and I found that really interesting. And then, and he can phrase it better than I can, but it's his lesson. But it was really, really neat. The way that he would play his licks and stuff in like a blues phrasing, blues concept, but using those, like, and I guess that's like, yeah, melodic minor meets the blues. I don't know. It's really interesting. Anyway, check out Quist's channel. Really, really cool stuff going on there. But I guess beyond that, developing skills for improv. God, man. Quist has some great jam tracks on his channel, and there's other great jam track kind of channels I've found on YouTube that have progressions, and the guy showing them, whether it's Quist or someone else, might start with sort of a sample solo where they're playing, and then the track continues on for another 3 minutes, and you can jam over it. And they might say, try this scale, or try, you know, whatever, this sort of approach, and it sort of inspires you to, you know, and I don't know. You know, that's a way. I would say scales are somewhat important. Modes are important, but also, you know, don't discount chord tones like arpeggios, so that you know what the tones are, let's say if, like I say, if you're playing blues and it's an E and it's a major blues, a dominant, so it's an E7 chord, you want to know where those target notes are. And then if you're playing a note that's not in the chord, you want to know what that note is kind of around those target notes so that you can then maybe target the target notes and it pulls your ear back into the, so that's my really long-winded way of saying, like, look into arpeggios too. If you're playing in an E sort of blues context, let's say E dominant, E7, it's good to be able to play the notes of, E7 arpeggios, let's say, all over the neck, so that you can see those target notes. Because the amazing thing is, what I've found is that you can kind of almost play anything if you pull it back into one of those target notes, the root, the third, the fifth, and the flat seventh, right? The notes of an E7 chord or an A7 chord or whatever key you're in. If you can visualize where those target notes are, if somebody's vamping on a E7 chord, let's say, you can kind of play anything as long as you wind up your lick or come back to those target notes, and it kind of pulls the ear back. And that's, beyond anything else, like, any scale or any, if you can just visualize the chord tones, that's almost all you need to know, I think. I don't know. These other things, like saying even what I just said, like melodic minor combined with whatever, now you're getting into, okay, certain scales and stuff and what those notes are. But you can gravitate towards those sounds without knowing, oh, I'm playing a melodic minor scale, or I'm playing this scale, or playing that scale. If you could just see the chord tones, right? And know that if I wind my lick up on one of these, it's going to sound right, and I can whittle around and kind of do some interesting things around that and end up there, and it always pulls the ear back in. I don't know. Does that make sense? It's my layman's way of, of getting there. But somebody's saying a combination of that, I would recommend. Stevie Ray actually last year of his life switched to 11. Stevie Ray also, to bring it back into, and I saw I missed some super chats. I'll get back to those. Stevie Ray also, for example, just talking about the chord tone thing and about improvising, he would do things like play the minor 9, right? Like a whole step above, a half step above the root, in some of his licks, right? Like I'll give you an example of that. So let's say a blues lick that goes like in A, right? Okay. That is not a blue note, but maybe it is. If it goes by fast enough. Lick like that, right? Right? That's here, there. He's playing he's mixing up major, minor. He's even playing the minor 9, which is like, it's almost like, what's he doing? Playing Phrygian, and it goes by so fast that it just sounds cool and a little bit exotic. And then you end on the major third or something, and it's a blues, So he would play that, like, licks like that a lot. It was so cool. Scream all you want, just resolve it at the end. That's right. Exactly. Okay. Let's see. Super chats here. I'm coming back to you guys. There's 2 here that I missed. There's Arthur. I think I got that one. Let's see. Matthew. Had an audition I was stoked about, but just found out I didn't get the gig. I'm sorry about that. I know how that heartbreaking that feels and how it's just a bit of a letdown. Do I have any tips dealing with the rejection? I know it's hard, man. I felt right when I read your comment right now. I felt that feeling a little bit, because I know how it feels. It's I've had a couple of those where it's like, it's a little bit of a stab and a little bit of a like, and then the only thing I can say is that if you did the best you could and you felt really prepared and that you put your best foot forward, that's all you can do. And if they still didn't choose you, you're probably where you're supposed to be, which is not doing that gig, because you never want to get a gig that, if you're feeling like you're doing your best and that you went to the wall with it and you really tried hard, and they still didn't appreciate that, which doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means that they felt that it wasn't quite the right thing for their thing, then neither of you would have been happy. Because no matter how hard you try, let's say if you got the gig, let's say that the person that they really, let's say you were the runner-up, right, for the gig, or the second runner-up, but neither of those two people were available. So we'll go with this guy. You're always that guy, and you're always playing catch up to, you know, oh, he wasn't quite what we wanted, but we had to go with him, you know, or whatever. You never want to be in that position. You want them to be like stoked on you. I feel like, yeah, we're excited to have this guy. Like, he came out, audition, he was like so great, and then you just get to, you know, to be you, and it's like they're happy to have you, and you're happy to be there. But if it's like a thing where they didn't, you know, I did an audition recently for something that I felt like, for a couple different reasons, like, I don't know if I'm right for this, and I won't say what it was or what it was, but I got into it and I was like, actually, this is pretty good music, and I went and did it, and I know a lot of people that actually went and did it. It wasn't just me, and I know I did really well, and I didn't. I got did I get callback or anything? They talked about callbacks, but then I think part of the thing was maybe that I'm just too damn old for the thing, and maybe a lot of the people were, but they said initially that it was like we're open to people just about any age to do this. I don't think they really were, but anyways, I know I did a really good job, and I didn't hear back, and nobody heard back, because I had a lot of friends, because, you know, like, I know a lot of people in this town, and so a lot of friends, they're like, that's kind of weird. I mean, really good players that went out, nobody heard back, and 3 days later nobody had heard back, and a week later and 2 weeks later nobody had heard back, and they had said that they were going to get in touch with us, you know, one way or the other, which they didn't do. And I think they didn't actually end up getting in touch with just about anybody that went out that didn't get called for the gig. And I don't know that anybody from actually the audition process that they set up got the gig. I think they found people other ways, actually. And I don't know that, because they videoed it and everything, I don't know that the videos were actually even looked at by, I think that they, you know, that it, I don't know what happened with it, but it was really weird. Anyways, long story short, a lot of it led me to believe that, you know what, it's a good thing that this didn't work out, because I don't feel like everybody was given their fair shake, or like necessarily treated like some really good players that were never, you know, nobody ever let them know one way or another what happened with it. Just you know, from a musician standpoint, that doesn't sit that well with me. Just from the fact that, like, everybody should have, you know, everybody put in a lot of effort on this stuff, and they should have gotten a call to let them, or an email or whatever, just an email, one way or another, you know, and nobody really did. And that was like, okay, well, would you really want to do that anyway then? You know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. I'm getting too long-winded probably about this, but you're where you're supposed to be. You're where you're supposed to be. And as long as you do the best you can, and you really go to the wall with it, and you try as hard as you can, if they don't pick you, you didn't want the job anyway, because you probably wouldn't have measured up to what they, you know what I mean? Like, that's the way that I always sort of, at least that's what I tell myself, that it's like, you would have been uncomfortable anyway, because you always would have been trying to people please. Well, do they like me? I don't know if they like me or not. If, oh, maybe I need to do this different or do that. And then you're in that psychosis the whole time that you've got the gig. And maybe they're always kind of, you know, like in between tours, they're looking for other players, or, you know, see if they can, yeah, he's not quite the guy we want. You know, we just went with him because he was, you never want that, you know? So Dave says he's terrible at auditions, haven't been able to put my best foot forward. Well, that's a whole, you know, like, why do you feel that way? And stuff, you know, like, that we could get into, you know, because that's a thing. There's just a lot of psychology surrounding auditions, and I'm way into the psychology of auditions and how to, you know, maximize your potential so that you can get the gigs that you want to get, you know, hopefully, you know. But it's a tough one, man. I spent my life, like, you know, and it's like the, you know, it's hard as musicians because and as actors, like forget it as musicians. We don't do nearly as many of them as actors, where it's just you just got to get a thick skin for going out and auditioning for things all the time. They just audition all the time for roles and get used to probably not getting them. You know, maybe they get, you know, like 2% of the things that they go out and audition for. Yeah. Jeff says chemistry has to gel for auditions. Yeah, it really does. All the way around, you know. And if it doesn't, that's the thing. That's you summed it up, Jeff. If the chemistry doesn't quite gel, no matter how much you wanted it, you probably didn't want it, because if the chemistry's not right, then you're always going to feel that, like when you got the gig, and it's kind of, you know. Origin Effects Compact Revival Drive into Bias Tremolo. Ooh, yeah. Thanks for everything you do. Thanks, James. I appreciate that. And you are in the UK, so you're an Origin Effects aficionado. Company, the country where they're produced. Make them over there in the UK. I'll be going over there soon for Classic Rock Show. Before I know it, I'll be in the UK again for some cold, rainy weather and some rock and roll. Yeah. Guitar players who tell you they use heavy gauge want to make you think they are better than everyone else. Well, there was this thing that happened in the 90s and then in the early 2000s where everybody went to the really heavy gauge strings. You know, I guess maybe Stevie Ray Vaughan like started it because he legit used 12s and 13s and things for, you know, to 56 or whatever. And he had a great sound, you know, and when you're using a Fender with not the highest output pickups and just a tube screamer into a loud, clean amp, that extra output and drive is part of that sound. It's great. But, you know, it also became part of the down-tuned kind of new metal sound, you know, 11s, you know, heavy strings, 12s, dual rectifiers, a big sludgy, you know, whatever. But if you haven't watched that Rick Beato video, which if you're kind of a Marshall, you know, rock player, is really interesting. I think they used a JCM 800 and a Les Paul, and they do 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s, and they listen to just the difference in the string gauge. And it's a big difference between all the gauges to me. And everybody kind of unanimously agreed that, at least for that particular sound and that guitar, that the 9s sounded great. That's not necessarily what'll work for a, you know, a jazz box or for a you know, a 335 through a clean amp or anything like that. But for a Les Paul into a dirty Marshall, the 9s did sound great. And that's kind of my wheelhouse. And I started to realize that, like, you know, 10s are cool. But as I got older, I've always had a little bit of, you know, recurring problems, not ever debilitating, but occasional problems with my left hand. And helping it along with some lighter gauge strings is not a bad thing, you know, and making the guitar easy to play is not a bad thing for me. It just helps me avoid issues. So I'm going to sound better on lighter gauge strings no matter what, if I can play better, because my hand isn't cramping or you know, getting these nerve shocks or things that I've had in my hand before from, you know, who knows what the hell's going on in here. And so it's all a balancing act, you know. Yeah, is the Classic Rock Show coming to the USA? I certainly hope so one of these days. I think they had every intention of doing that, and then the pandemic happened and stuff. So we'll see what's on deck right now. The UK, for whatever reason, right now is particularly kind of open for gigging, it seems, and they're doing a lot of festivals and gigs and tours. And so it's like that's where we're, and that's their you know, that's home court for them. So, you know, it just makes it real easy. So that's going to be the first thing, and we'll see what happens beyond that. Yeah. Jalapenos or habaneros up there in the super chat. Who's that? Let's Austin. Jalapenos or habaneros? Thanks for the super chat. Sorry, I swallowed the wrong way. It's not COVID, I swear. I like them all. They all mess with my belly, but they sure are good, you know, when you're eating them. Yeah. Never got to see SRV. You know, I did get to see him, and I saw him in '85 or so, and it was awesome. I think I've told you guys the story before, but I was right up against the stage with my friend. It was at general admission, so there was no seats, and it was a crowded kind of large club, like, you know, 1,200 capacity kind of club. and I was pushed up against the stage, and I was a little guy, and I was with my friend who was a really little guy. He was just kind of short in stature. And Stevie sat down on his amp, and he looked at both of us, and he laughed a little bit because we were like these two little kids in a sea of dudes that probably look like bikers or something, or hardcore blues and rock fans, you know, older guys. We're these two kids, and we're just like, and he looked at us, and he started laughing, and he was like getting ready to play Lenny. And he said, "How you guys doing?" He leaned over and said, and I was like, "We're awesome, man," you know. And he was like, "Cool." And then he started playing Lenny. I'll never forget that. That was awesome. It was so cool. It was great. Great show. It's hard to remember anything else than that moment of the show, because that you know, you got like your childhood memories, and that's one of my childhood memories. It's clear as a bell. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. What else we got here? Do you play the white Laboga you had a while ago? You like the sound? It's a good sounding amp. I have it here. I haven't used it for a little while, but it's a variation on a Marshall mod, you know. That's yeah, it's got kind of a mid-range switch that you can switch, and it's not related to the kind of the BE sound, or maybe my own amp, or in a 50-watt amp. Let's see. Keeping 10s on my Strat, have 9s on my Telly, and switching to 9s on my PRS. I know what you mean. Well, you know, once again, it's a balancing act, and the heavier strings, the 10s on a Strat can be nice with single coils, especially if it's, you know, maybe low output, you know, below 6K kind of single coils. 10s on Strat can work nice, you know, and that's a cool thing, you know, to have different gauge strings. I've got different gauge strings on certain guitars these days, I guess, you know. I mean, when I think about the EVH thing, you know, I've got the 9 to 40, you know, with a 15 gauge G. It's basically an 8 from an 8 set. Yeah. Yeah, it's, you know, and then I've still got 10s on some guitars around here, but I've pretty much gone to 9.5s overall. I might just go to 9 to 42 at this point. Maybe that'll be my new thing, you know. Yeah. Robert says he likes the 9.5 D'Adarios. They're really nice, and I like those, and I like the Ernie Balls too, and I'm an Ernie Ball endorser, so, you know. Carly Guitar says, one of your shirts says EMGs, great looking guitar. Thank you. Appreciate that. It is a really nice guitar. It's actually, you know, the funny thing about EMGs is, like, I had this preconceived notion that maybe I wouldn't have liked them, but I wanted to try them eventually, because I never, you know, I just always thought, oh, I like passive pickups. You know, I get a lot. I'm going through a lot of that lately with pickups, where I'm like kind of turning a corner in the last couple of years about, oh, well, these are good for this other sound, and I'd always had a, you know, like a preconceived thing about them. So with the EMGs, here's my thinking. I always thought, oh, they're going to sound a little like sterile, or like there's, you know, a preamp in line, or something's not organic or whatever. Well, I think back when EMGs came out, a lot of guitar players were just using Marshalls and a couple pedals, and maybe plugging in, you know, right into, you know what I mean? Without, like, we weren't talking about buffers like in the 80s. You know, nobody was talking about buffers and you know, that kind of thing. It was like, you know, so then these pickups come out, and they're buffered. They're, you know, there's a preamp circuit, essentially. They're low impedance. They use the preamp to bring up the level of and then drive long cable lengths to your amp. Well, that's kind of what we're doing with buffers and stuff on pedal boards now anyway. And so, long story short, I think everybody's kind of got pedal boards now. It seems like it's just about everybody, you know. And so maybe we're sort of used to the sound at this point of, you know, after a 10 or 20 foot cable, a proper buffer, and all that. And that sound, you know. And so the EMGs, long story short, sounded, I was like, these sound like way more organic. For organic, what does that mean? But, you know, it wasn't such a unfamiliar sound to me or anything like that. Now, they're buffered right out of the guitar, so you don't have the benefit of any kind of, like, benefit. Is it a benefit? But any kind of capacitance of a cable or anything going to the pedal board. You're getting that buffer right out of the instrument. But I'll be damned if I wasn't, like, really, like, shocked how the single coils especially had this sort of like I was like, these are super stratty. This isn't a unusual sound to me. This sounds great. Like, so I really quite like them. You know, I was more than I thought I was going to. I think they're really good pickups. Still love, you know, my passive pickups and stuff like that, but they're a great option too. If you haven't seen it, actually, on the Sir Instagram, the terrific player. I'm forgetting his name now. I haven't met the fella yet, but anyways, the Sir endorser. He's maybe from Brazil. And he stopped by the factory a while ago, and he did a really nice video for them on their new it's the kind of the new standard that they're doing with the flame tops and the EMGs. That's kind of a throwback to the old Pensasurs. And anyway, he played a really great piece on that guitar through the PT15, only using the discovery delay, and that's it. So like it's basically, you know, amp gain with the EMGs in that guitar and the discovery delay. And it sounds like old school, like maybe 90s Lukather or something. It's really great tone they got on the demo. So check it out. But it's pretty cool. Both love my amp. The PT15 sound great with it, and the pickups sound terrific too. And just it's in his hands too. He's a great player. So who else we got here? Aquila, what's up, man? Would Blackout's preamp and its 25K pot in a pedal enclosure work? I'm thinking the 500K pots on the guitar would mess it up. Yeah, you can't have 500K pots in a guitar with low impedance pickups. I don't think. I think you need the proper pots for the active pickups. I do believe. Looking for a subtle chorus, more of a spatial expander. What you want is probably the Eventide micropitch sound more than a chorus, because it's like what we call still chorus, because it's not, you know, it's just where there's a detune with no modulation of that detune, or, you know, and it has less of a, I don't know what you would call it, less of a C6 sound than you know, so and you can do, like, I think the standard micro pitch or EVH thing was +9 -9 on each side, to give you like some detune, plus detune and so it's detuning the sound a little bit and then raising the pitch of the sound a little bit, mixing that with the dry sound, and that's what you get, and you get this kind of widening effect. And it sounds really great, but if you want that sound, now you can do that with less pitch shift. You could go +4 -4, +3 -3, and you'll notice that it's less, you know, it's doing less. So that might be what you want. That's what I would recommend for a subtle kind of doubling or widening, expanding. Yeah, and you do need really to experience it, like spatial, you know, you need a stereo setup at least. Wet, dry, wet's great too, to have a dry in the middle and then the two, and then it gets really nice and wide. But if you've just got 2 amps, you can do it and get a great kind of version of that sound too. Yeah. Let's see. Any experience with a Sustainiac? A little bit. I've never owned one, but I've played with them. They're kind of fun. Oh, does Ed O'Brien use one? That's interesting. Radiohead. So he's got one in a signature Strat. That could be cool. I use, for kind of a faux version of that, I use the Freakout pedal from Digitech, which is sort of a more lo-fi approach to maybe the same thing. The Sustainiac, to me, kind of neat, but always sounded a little overused by anybody that used it. Does that make sense? It just sounded kind of little like, I mean, Eddie kind of, he experimented with it. Somebody said on the show a long time ago, they were like, the Sustainiac, the device that almost brought EVH down, like from the heights of guitar greats, you know. I don't know about that, but I mean, it was kind of like, when he was using it, it wasn't like, that wasn't my favorite, you know, thing as far as him using effects. I don't know, but I really like the Freakout pedal. Now, Ed O'Brien, I mean, that's different, you know, within that Radiohead context. That makes a lot of sense to me. If you did it in a more ambient context and less of a guitar hero holding the note forever context, you know, maybe like with the Eventide Black Hole reverb and, you know, long echo or something, and vibrato pedal. You know, the Michael Thompson trick that's really great is the Boss vibrato, VB2, right? He'd put it in momentary mode, and when he plays slide, he plays slide and then hit the vibrato on It's really cool sounding, like where you momentary the vibrato, and then it just vibratos the held note, you know. But you could do that with a Sustainiac, I think, too. Hold the note and then vibrato with the vibrato pedal, and probably get some really amazing sounds if you use some ambient delay and reverb. Somebody try it if they've got a Sustainiac. Good stuff. Satriani seems to dig the Sustainiac, or is that some other sustainer device? No, it's probably, well, if it is, it's very similar. They all use a it's sort of the EBO principle, where they use a thing that basically looks like a pickup that drives the string, keeps it vibrating, just like an EBO would. It's all kind of doing the same thing. But yeah. Best Strat pickups for SRV or Jimmy stuff. I have a set of Fender's Texas Specials there designed for lighter strings. Yeah, they're like on the hot. I always like Texas Specials. They were pretty good when they came out, and they were in his signature guitar. I was like, oh yeah, these kind of do that sound. Pretty cool, you know. You play 13s though. Wow. Yeah, you might just need. I mean, I love the Sir V63s. That's a great sounding single coil. That is, you know, just a great 60s style, you know, Strat pickup. The V60 LP is really nice too. So those are a couple there that you can check out. Yeah, one other thing, you know, I have one of these. I think it's here. Yeah, this pedal. So this is the Pedal Pawn Texas Twang, which is similar to a Diaz sort of thing, but this is like a it's almost taking a page from the Rangemaster style thing, high, medium, low. So you got a range of different sort of boost on there, and then the level. It's germanium, I think. And this really, what happens is when you roll the volume down on the guitar, it does that fuzz facey thing, but it's not a fuzz face. It just has that similar circuit. So if you watch from the Pedal Pawn folks on their channel, you'll see guys using this and getting a very hyper kind of Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan, super Strat kind of thing going on. And it's essentially, if you ever watch my video on the secret to, you know, whatever, I put a clickbait title on it, so sue me. But it was the secret to the, you know, great Strat clean sounds, I think I called the video on my channel. And I use a fuzz face clone, roll down the volume, and then get that great sound. That, you know, that it was a big, you know, Hendrix. Michael, there's another thing Michael Thompson told me. He goes, I think Hendrix had the fuzz on all the time. You know, like the fuzz face, and then just rolled down for clean, because it has that amazing glassy that everybody's always changing pickups and trying to get that sound or whatever. At least, you know, over the years, people have gone through their Hendrix or Stevie Ray Vaughan phase where that's what they were trying to do. Anyways, here's another one that'll kind of do that. The Shanks, I believe this is the Shanks Fuzz, this one. Maybe this is the treble booster one. I get his pedals mixed up because it's the Shanks and the Shanks too, but these will do a similar kind of thing. When you roll the volume down, get that glassy thing going. It's pretty magical. If you haven't tried it, try it. Try it. Who else we got here? Let's see. JD Analog says the best SRV and Jimmy tones I've heard were from a John Mayer with the Big Dippers. Yeah, there's a scoopy kind of pickup, aren't they? Amazing with the mids cut. Yeah, and his pickups in his PRS really do that too. Like when you go in the 2 and 4 positions, man, are they clucky in those 2 positions. It's pretty cool. It's really like got that scoop with the magic kind of, you know, it's neat, you know, that sound. I really, like, I almost started laughing when I heard it. I played one of his models at GitCon in Germany when it first came out a few years ago. And I put it in that position. It was like, my first instinct was like, this is fun. Like, these are fun, these pickups, like in these 2 positions. I started cracking up because they were so mid-scooped and had like just this hyper kind of, you know, Jimmy meets Stevie Ray Vaughan, whatever kind of clean thing, you know? Yeah. Arthur says he was never into Stevie's music. I loved his music, man. I mean, Riviera Paradise and, you know, Lenny, those songs are so soothing to me. And just like, God, Riviera Paradise, that song's just so beautiful. Life by the Drop, some great songs, man. Because I find... okay, I'm a blues fan to a degree, but I find a lot of it sort of tedious, to be honest, or a little derivative, right? Repetitive, you know, like I love BB King, come on, you know, and I love Freddie King, great songs, like, you know, but when I hear a lot of, you know, stuff that if it's just rehash kind of stuff, kind of what I love about ZZ Top is they did so much different stuff that wasn't, there was a lot drawn from the blues, but, you know, I'd love the weird side of that band, you know, it's always, there's always a basis in the blues, but it's like, you know, the whole El Loco album is so bizarre, you know, that it's just really fun to me. But Stevie, you know, he somehow managed to thread that needle of like, he songs like Life by the Drop or I mean, even like Couldn't Stand the Weather or like, you know, they were just his own unique take on the blues. To me was, I loved it. I mean, I think he did so much for keeping the genre alive and furthering the sound and to be honest, I kind of got to disagree. I mean, there's no right and wrong because art is art, right? So your opinion is just as valid as mine, Arthur. But I loved the songs, and I don't feel that way about a lot of blues. I watch, you know, I'll see blues and, oh, great guitar playing or whatever. I don't feel, and it used to be so about the songs, you know. I mean, that was the whole, it was storytelling, and it was like about, you know, good blues ain't nothing but a good man feeling sad or whatever. You know, it was about this great storytelling and stuff, you know. You know, BB King paying the cost to be the boss or whatever, you know. I mean, this great storytelling where I was just sucked into the lyrics, and as a little kid, I loved it. But anyways, I thought Stevie really tapped into that. It was great. That's just my opinion. So Roy Buchanan, Roy's another guy that, like, well, you know, the steel guitar stuff and his whole unique approach. There was a great Roy Buchanan clip that showed up. Oh, I think Slash posted it on Instagram this week, and it reminded me how great, you know, he yeah, you know, watch the clip that Slash posted. If you look at his IG, you can see it. And it's, you know, he takes a full 60 seconds to kind of wind into the solo, and it's so minimalist. And then it's unfortunate because the clip cuts off, and you're like, oh, he was just going to start to pick it up and start to burn a little. But it's like he spends a good solid, you know, 60 seconds like milking a couple different notes, and it's like so magical. It's like so great. He's just really singing on the guitar in a great way. Yeah, you know, yeah. Also love Texas Specials, says Bogeyman there in the super chat. In my Alder Body USA Strat, how would it pair with a Thornbucker Plus? Great, I think. Or would the Motor City BB be better for EH tones? The Motor City, what's this pickup? The second degree black belt. Yeah, that would be good. Specifically EVH, I think, honestly, what you really want is an Alnico 2 magnet. I really feel like that these days. Now, the one pickup that I feel like maybe is the exception, after doing that big pickup shootout, this is where I'm drawing from whatever experiences I had learning from that. But I think that the one pickup that was the exception for me in an Alnico 5 was the VH2 by Bare Knuckle, which is an amazing sounding pickup, really great sounding pickup. But beyond that, I really think that 9K A2 thing is the, you know, so the Pariah Pasadena White or the EVH, you know, the 78. There's a number of different, the Rewind Electric had a version of it as well. Because of the crank plexi top, I'm talking about Eddie after the, if we're talking about that, we've talked about this at length, and I don't want to talk it to death, but that Van Halen 1 super distortion thing that was, you know, that destroyer sound, that's one thing. And then there's everything else afterwards, right? Which, like, as you get into Van Halen 2 and stuff, that sound warms up and it's a different sound. And that's the sound I'm talking about. Maybe first that 9K A2 sound, and then getting into the 13, 14K, more custom kind of situation, you know, later. So did I answer your question? I hope so, to some degree. My long-winded rant. Once again, thanks for doing these videos. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I had kind of a, I'll just say I had kind of a tough week this week, like, which is part of why I chose to do this gig that I was mentioning in Wisconsin and just kind of get out of town for a minute and mix it up. I think maybe I love being here in this room and I love, you know, LA and stuff, but I think I need to just travel for a second to get it, because I did a lot of that for like 20 years. And it's like, maybe I haven't had enough of that. And I've been too sucked into maybe the news or like whatever, you know, and it's started to affect my mental well-being a little bit. That's what I felt this week. And I was really looking forward to this show, to come in here with you guys this week, just because I noticed that if I think about the guitar and try and get into that headspace of the guitar and what it's always done for me, and thinking about pickups and amps and pedals and guitar tone and guitar music and stuff, it really helps me to, that's my North Star or whatever. So anyways, thanks, Cole, but I feel the same thing, you know. Thank you guys for being here to do the video with me, because otherwise I wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't be any point if I was sitting here talking to myself, would there? So we're all in this together. Any plans for another guitar from Sir? Yes, is all I could say. But I'll tease it. I'll tease it. I should say, just by saying yes, and it's relatively soon. There's something coming, so, you know, which I'm really, really, really excited about, and I think it's really cool. And so that's coming. Been working on something for a while, and put some thought into it, how to make it, trying to, you know, keep moving forward with a design that is both familiar and also, hey, that's a little different and signature, much like my signature guitar, the first version is. Trying to keep that, you know, where it's not like, oh, that looks really weird or anything like that. More like, wow, that's beautiful and looks familiar, and yet it's unique and it's got its thing. So, and I really feel like something like that is what we've come up with. So soon, I'm really excited about it. Can you tell? Can you tell? I love working on stuff with those guys. It takes a long time, but I love it. And that's okay. You know, it's like slow and steady wins the race, and coming up with good stuff is what's most important. They're my family, you know. The Sir folks are great. I've got a super chat to get to there as well, so I'm going to do that. But most underrated guitarist, in my opinion, you know, I probably got to go with Ted Green. Just off the top of my head, that's what I felt. So I took lessons from Ted, and, you know, Ted was a favorite of folks like Eric Johnson and anybody in LA that was around in the 90s, and they all knew who Ted was if they were, you know, and Ted was on another planet as far as he was more than a guitarist, really. He was just almost like a musicologist, and his knowledge of many things, but also the guitar was so deep, and music was so deep, that it was beyond just about, you know, he had another worldly almost, maybe he was like on the spectrum or something, you know, I don't know what it was, but he just had this magic, yeah, he was different, and really in a musical way, he was so beyond, you know, and there's very little recorded of Ted out there and stuff. So I don't know if it's underrated by, when you say underrated, I almost think it's like guys who put out a lot of music, maybe Tommy Bolin or something, you know, like people that actually have records out that like people don't talk about enough, you know, or whatever. Ted was a bit under the radar, you know, when it came to that kind of stuff. But man, was he ever, man, he could play, you know, and it's just play music. That's the thing. He was so musical. I was really lucky to get to spend some time with him. Yeah, missed that guy. Neil F. there on the super chat. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. I do. Thank you for being here. That's going in the coffee fund. And Buzz, you guys, thank you. This will keep us in coffee around here for a while, so we can keep fueled up. What's your take on the latest state of the modeling world? Quad Cortex Fractal Kemper. Well, they've gotten quite good, and many people seem to have moved to them, haven't they? You know, but there's still always going to be amp people. For me, the fractal is the deepest of them all as far as the amount of effects, amps, cabinets, things you can do with them. It's been widely adopted by, you know, everybody from Metallica to, you know, all kinds of people, and they built their touring rigs around them. And it's a at this point, it's a staple of you know, the touring and recording rigs of many artists and the way that, you know, that they make their music and work. So it's hard to argue with that. The Kemper, similar. I mean, and, you know, you see it on stages all over the place. I've got a lot of friends that use that thing. I've got one here. It does a really good job. You know, when I think about, you know, my friend Lisa that plays with Willow Smith now, I see her out on stage, you know, and they're playing like rock and roll. You know, it's kind of like Willow's got like a bit of a, you know, pop punk thing going on. She's up there with like a, you know, looks like a 212 cabinet with a Kemper on top of it and a Strandberg guitar. You know, kids are like ruling the world these days and taking over. So it's a thing that you see out there now, and it's becoming a, you know, sort of a standard. You see, yeah, other folks, you know, a lot of my friends are using them. So in the pop world, they seem to reign supreme. The Kemper. Pop world, you see a lot of Kempers. Metal, fractal, if people are modeling, right? When I think about modern metal and, you know, periphery or you know, modern kind of whatever you call it, shred, gent, whatever that, like, it's like fractal. Kemper and metal too, I guess, but more pop. I see the pop bands touring with Kempers. Quad Cortex, still kind of new. I love the simplicity of the Quad Cortex. That's what I'll say about it. It sounds really, really, really good. I'm going to use it for this gig I've got coming up. It's simple. The one thing about the Quad Cortex that I've had now that I've put it on a board that I'm having a bit of an issue with is the closeness of the pedals. That is tough for me because I've been trying to foot switch with it and it's a little rough. And what I've come down to realize is, just for me, maybe it's my feet or the shoes I wear or this pedal board, the way it's configured, I don't know what it is, but I'm like pretty much resigned to, like, I only want to use the bottom row of switches. If I try and hit the top, it misfires a lot for me. So that's one little thing I'll say. Not a big deal, because I find that the scenes on the Quad Cortex, which are like when you're within a preset and then you can change sounds within the preset by turning effects on and off, you know, and the Quad Cortex is so powerful. You can put pretty much anything you need for at least one song within one preset. You don't need to be changing presets, because then you don't get spillover if you do that. So the way to get beyond that is by using the scenes mode, staying within a preset and turning individual effects on and off. And I don't mean stomp mode. That's a different thing. I mean, like, if you want to do one button push and maybe 3 things come on and 2 others go off, you can do that in the scenes mode. And when I'm doing that within a preset, I've just resigned myself to the bottom 4 switches. That's what I want to do. Because I have the problems hitting the top ones with my, I'll hit it and I'm like, I'm playing, I'm like, the sound didn't change, and I look down and it's still on the other preset. And I don't know if it's because I'm hitting it at an angle with my shoe where I'm also nailing the bottom one at the same time, but the switches are kind of close together. It's not a problem if I just do the bottom switches. So I'm fine with just using those bottom 4. That's cool. I mean, do you really need more than 4 scenes per song? You know, so that's how I'm doing it. And that's just one little criticism, but the thing sounds great and it's very easy to use. So nothing's perfect, is it? L. Scott Music, Lauren, have you seen this guitar? Ultimate Stage Flash, YouTube title, Prince, Purple Rain, electric guitar cover by Kiefer. I always hope I'm saying, I know this fella too. Kiefer, I think I'm saying his name right, but he's a great guy, really cool guy from Israel. I haven't seen that, but I should check it out. He's a nice dude. Last time I saw him was at the Tolman event in Germany. I haven't seen that. I should check it out. Thanks, Lauren, for the super chat. I do appreciate it. What amp models would you use in the Helix to emulate the PT100? The closest for me have been the I like the I believe it's called the Lone Star. It's the Lone Star one. So the Texas something or other, it's called. In the let me see here. I have a Helix working here right now, so I could take a look. Let me see here. the placator is the dirty one that I like, but I need to find the name of the. Does anybody remember? Maybe it's the. I'm looking through all the models right now. I quite like the Fullerton models. Those are really nice, but that's not the one that I would pick for that sound. I like the matchless ones too for AC30 stuff. As you know, I like the play, and for the dirty channel, I like the placator. Cali, Texas, channel 1. That's my pick for the clean, to get close to what's in the PT100, the Cali, Texas. And I believe that's a model of the Lone Star by Mesa, which just works. Sounds good to me. So, long story short, Cali, Texas, channel 1, and the placator are the ones that I would use to get similar to PT100 vibe. And if you load a Celestion IR of my signature cab in there, the 212 with the G12H75 creambacks, if you use a high gain 121 and 57 mix, you are really close to the sound of a PT100 through the matching 212 cabinet. That's what I found. Yeah. Did I get all the... I think I got all the super chats there. Thanks, Anthony, for the super chat. Appreciate that. How do you set the Cali, Texas? I don't know. I'd have to, my foot switch is way over there, and I'd have to get, I can't see right now exactly what I'm doing, but, you know, start with everything on 5, and then you go from there. I've probably got the drive at like 4 or something like that. The EQ somewhere between 4 and 6, something along those lines. You know, the biggest change is going to be the IR. If you change that to, you know, I find. So, I can't look at the preset right now to tell you exactly like what I do for my, I have a preset that I use for my backup that that I made ages ago, where I'm using the placator and the well, multiple presets for the, you know, clean and dirty to match kind of my touring rig. I'd have to look to get the exact settings, but I have a couple of presets in the latest Line 6. Well, I don't know if it's the latest now, but a very recent Line 6 software update. And one of them is called Pete Thorn Duotone or something like that, I think I called it. But check it out if you haven't checked it out. A guy posted it the other day, and he said he really loves it. It's using an A/B switch so that you can, and a looper, so that you can record a rhythm part using kind of a clean Fendery sound, and then loop it, get a cool loop going, and then you hit the A/B switch, and it goes to a nice lead tone that's kind of an organic sounding, you know, slightly more gain, bluesy lead, think Dumbly kind of thing. And I made that for them for their latest software update. If you have a Helix and you haven't tried it, it's in there. I really think it sounds good. I do. Do you consider clean as edge of breakup? Not really, no. For me, my clean sound, I mean, it can be, but for me, my clean sound is pretty clean, I think. I mean, the way that I set the PT100 or the 15 anyway. I guess if I nail it with a humbucker, it's breaking up a bit, but it's not as dirty as, say, what I hear from Tim Pierce when he runs his amp. He gets, it's almost crunchy when he's got the volume up all the way on the guitar. So, you know, some definitely breakup going on. And then he rolls down to like 8 or with the volume pedal to get it clean up. Mine will be clean on 10 on the guitar. And then I add a compressor to get that feel, because I'm a bit more of that. I like that kind of 80s clean thing. I just do, you know. But then what I'll do to get that other sound is add a pedal, like sometimes the Jan Ray or something, to get a bit of that layered drive, and then I can roll down and get the clean. Like, dude, so I set up the amp cleaner than maybe Tim would, what I call clean, you know, and then I'll add a pedal to get where he has the amp set, I think, and he'll just roll down more than me, probably get clean. Does that make sense? I hope so. That's just what I like. Yeah, I like a true, like, relatively clean for me. Tim, I think he always says, you know, my clean is always somewhat dirty. See, he said things like that, you know. So, I got another super chat there. You guys are too kind. We got 440 people online. That's awesome. It's great to have you guys here. Oh, I'm going to announce it one more time now, since we've got lots of people that probably weren't here at the beginning. Coming up next weekend, I do believe it is, on Sunday Live, the great Kim Mitchell. If there's any Canadians in the house, you'll know who he is. He's a Canadian rock and roll legend, an amazing guitar player and songwriter. major influence on me. A little while ago, I went and re-listened to the Akimbo Logo album, and I realized that I know every lyric and every note and every drum fill and everything is in here. And there's a lot of songs on that record I hadn't heard in a long time. And through listening to the whole thing back to back, it was like like there's nothing that'll transport you back to your childhood or a certain age, like listening to a record that you haven't heard in 30 years, right? And I put on the album, and it was just like, oh my God, this music is in me, like in my soul, And so, and it really reminded me of how important Kim was to me and how much I loved that music and his kind of rock and roll and slightly tweaked take on it aesthetic, like back in the 80s, and very Canadian, distinctively, intrinsically Canadian approach to, I just love his bent on guitar and on music and stuff. So I'm so honored to have him on. I can't wait to talk to him next week. And if you're Canadian, you know what that means. If you're not Canadian, be prepared to be a fan of a great rock and roll legend that maybe you haven't. This is one of the great things that I found about going to other countries like France and Japan and working and spending lots of time there over the last 10 years or so, is that there's sometimes these great artists that you might be unfamiliar with that it's like a whole world opens up to you, like, oh my God, it's like, it's like a little like going to another planet and getting to experience the music. So if you're not familiar with Kim and his music, come along for the ride next week. And, it's probably going to stir up some inspiration to go listen and stuff and because he's just, if you're a fan of great music from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and you're not familiar with him, just be prepared to become a fan, I would say. Vincent, I have often felt the way you describe this week, even questioning why bother looking for happiness in music with everything going on. The way you describe this week, even questioning why bother looking for happiness in music. Yeah, dude, I know what you mean. But I took my 10-year-old son to see Miles Kennedy last night, and my cup was filled. That's great. I know it can be a little like depression is a weird thing, and moods and, even low level depression. It can be like, what's the point? I just don't care about anything and those feelings. And know that I think, you're not alone in those feelings, and that sometimes you got to force yourself to go do something different. And then the great thing about music is if you can get if it's the right music and you tap into that thing, you forget that feeling and it knocks you out of that, doesn't it? It's a beautiful thing, like where you're like, oh yeah. Was I in a bad mood earlier? And that's part of what I love about playing guitar. I heard John Five say once in an interview that playing guitar for him was like his therapy. That he was he's an honest guy and he's like he's a pretty forthright guy and stuff. But he was saying like I was going to say it was an unusually honest interview. I didn't mean it to sound that way. It was a candid interview, and he was just in a mood where he was just whatever. He was in the right headspace to describe his feelings about guitar and what it had done for him, and how it was kind of like his centering, like that was his North Star, like sort of his if he didn't play guitar, he felt a lot of anxiety and a lot of issues, and guitar was always the thing that he did to kind of and I think we can all relate with that, with music and stuff. It tends to reset us, and it's a great, if you're feeling like. Another friend of mine said something great recently. My friend Dennis, he said, when things get too big, go small. And that is that could be about gardening or cooking or about, reading a certain book that you're really into, or when things get too big, when the world gets overwhelming, to get into your little thing and just reset, like do that thing that brings you around to, and maybe that's meditation for some people. For me these days, a lot, if it's not music, it's riding my bike. I can go to the beach and ride my bike and really just, that's a great groove to get in for me, so whatever these things are that help us. But guitar, and even geeking out about this guitar stuff, talking to you guys and stuff is, for me, it's really, it's just terrific, isn't it? It's a great resetter. So anyways, Charles says guitar helped him find a way back from a difficult time. Yeah, it can do that, it can do that. Props from Canada, says Herbert. Herbert, come here next week for the Kim Mitchell show. It's going to be great. Can't wait to have him on and talk to him about all things music, guitar, life. It's going to be great to, I love talking to Canadians, and especially, I haven't, we've been texting, but I haven't had a conversation with him, like a telephone conversation or anything. So this will be the first time, I think. And I can't wait to see what that's like, because I always have this feel when I talk to Canadians, generally speaking, of oh yeah, like this is that's how I grew up. And so, like, you know, when you're, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing if that's the feeling, and I hope that it is, and I think it probably will be. You know, that sort of like what's up, homie feeling, you know. So yeah. Brett says he's very excited about it. I am too, man. I am too. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Live music is a great cure for depression. Agreed. Can be. I know. Yeah. Just getting out of the house, getting, you know, just switching it up. You know, that's kind of why I'm going to do some gigs. You know, is I felt like I got to go play. Like I need to go play. I need to go mix it up, put myself, you know, under the gun a little bit, under the, you know, like feel some pressure, maybe learn some music, get back into it. Because I'll tell you what, when I get into I love getting into rehearsals for something and looking down at my pedal board and all my stuff set up and got a tone, it's loud, drummer kicks in, you're like, oh yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be. I love that feeling. And man, has it been way too long since, you know, since I've, you know, so. Aquila says, is that Spectre sound channel a typical Canadian? He's a unique guy. Always rants about wood not making a difference. He's just a unique dude. I really like him actually in his own, you know, like I've met him quite a few times, and we, you know, we have a good rapport and stuff like that. And he's a nice dude and stuff. And, you know that his personality, I think, like on YouTube and stuff is he's actually a little more soft spoken in person. I don't know how else to describe it, but I wouldn't say it's typical for Canadians. Canadians have kind of a they're a little like Australians, but less crazy, maybe. You know how Australians are like, you know, I don't know, that's a stereotype of Australians, but the kind of crazy, they're just fun and a little bit like good sense of humor, a lot of inside joking going on, a lot of or, you know, dialect and stuff like that you might not get if you get in, you know, if you've ever hung out with a couple Canadians, you're like, what are you guys talking about? What's a loony and a toonie and a hoser and a, you know, what the hell's back bacon? Yeah. Battle Scar, says Bradley. So Battle Scar, for those that don't know, talking about Kim and his impact and stuff. Battle Scar is this amazing song you can check out. That is Rush and Kim's band. Kim was in a band called Max Webster. And if you haven't heard of Max Webster, you won't know. But there was nobody in the band named Max Webster. But Kim was the front person of Max Webster. And Max Webster and Rush, you know, there's this parallel kind of those two bands kind of coming up in the Canadian music scene together. Rush, of course, exploded into, you know, international stardom. Kim Mitchell remained, you know, and Max say a bit more of a Canadian thing. But you know, they played gigs, toured together, did a lot together, and they recorded a song together. So there's a song called Battle Scar that is Rush and Max Webster bands jamming at the same time in the studio. And it's a co-lead vocal with Getty and Kim, if you haven't heard it. So it's great. It's a 70s Canadian rock classic. So yeah. It's a good listen. I'd love to see you do something with Satchel. So that guy, Russ, of course, from Steel Panther, is one of the first people I ever met coming to LA. He was an instructor at MI. He's a year younger than I am. He would have been, I was 18 or 19, and I think he was 8. If I was 19, he would have been 18. And he was already an instructor at GIT when I first got there. And he had been Paul Gilbert's roommate up until recently. They lived in an apartment in Yucca Street, I believe, in Hollywood together, maybe during when Russ was going to school at MI. But anyways, he's still here, I do believe. And yeah, I saw him a little while ago. He was in this room, Mr. Satchel himself. He was doing something in another place in my building. And I was like, dude. And I said, it's Pete. And he's like, oh my God, dude, I haven't seen him in one of those people I probably haven't seen in 25 years. And so to see him and talk to him for a minute, of course I've seen him, you know, he's followed his career as he's been doing well and stuff. But anyway, we had a good catch up and stuff. And he's a really nice guy, and he's a hell of a guitar player. And I'm happy that he's has success in music and done well, you know. So Jason says, any plans to have Peter Frampton back on the show? I would love to do that. Hands down, my favorite show of yours to date. Thanks, Jason. Peter was awesome, you know, and maybe we could do it again sometime soon, you know. I feel like it wasn't that long ago, but maybe it was. I mean, I guess it's been, well, it's probably been a little over a year. So, you know, anyways, but I would love to do it again at some point. I talk to Peter fairly frequently, so he's a good friend. Nice guy, you know, great guy, and he's got a cute new dog, that's for sure. If you follow his social media. Any experience with third power amps? I'm looking at the kitchen sink 6 VEL. I'm afraid it's a jack of all trades, master of none. I don't know that amp, to be honest, so I can't quite comment. But they do make great amps, and you know they've been doing good amps for a long time. So you know, how well can it do Fender and Vox with the EL34? I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't played it in particular, so I don't want to offer up an opinion. But I'll just say that they know their stuff. And they make nice amps, I think. Done some good stuff. Ronan says, I'm only like 3 hours from Destin, but I don't think I can make the VH tribute. Well, I'm sorry. Come on down. Come on. Well, if you can't make it, I understand. I sure would love to be there and see you in person. Passing at Edward was tough. Yeah, and it kind of continues to be, you know, it's like it's really sad he's not with us anymore. But we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna play some great tunes. That's the main thing for me is let's celebrate the music. What that guy did. It's pretty amazing. And thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that, Ronan. And we'll have some fun down there in Florida no matter what. Maybe we'll do it again, you know. There'd be another chance. Can you explain your left-hand technique over 4 frets? When and how do you use 3 fingers? You know, I'm not so great with my 3rd and 4th finger, so I tend to favor fingers 1, 2, and 3. But yeah, so I'll do a lot of using my 2nd finger with this stretch, you know, instead of this. You know, this is just stronger. These 2 fingers evidently work off the same tendon, and so they're just not quite as agile as these. You know, I can get more strength out of my 3rd and 2nd than I can out of these 2. But with that said, when I'm doing fast kind of, you know, sometimes I just go to it. It's an unconscious kind of thing, but I tend to do this stretch a lot, and then I feel like then I've got quite a good stretch, so I can reach, you know, up there with that finger then, you know. So yeah, I don't know if that's, I just favor when I can, I'll use that 3rd finger. I'll bend with it. I'm stronger with it. You know, it just works better for me. Does any of that come from your MIT time? Not really. I would say that it was probably set in stone before that. Yeah, I think. Let's see what else we got here. Little known fact, Satchel played in Rob Halford's band Fight in the 90s. That is true. He did. Yeah, I remember that. And I think he played with, he worked with Kevin Gilbert too in the 90s. Did some of his solo stuff along with Corky James. Did a little bit with Kevin. Kevin was great. Yeah, and then I kind of lost track of Russ for 10 years. You know, I don't know what he did from 2000 until 2010 or 9 or 10, and then Steel Panther started up, and he's like, oh, there he is, you know. So I'm not sure what he was up to during those years. What's your opinion on Naylor amps? Really quite like them. Super Drive. I tried a little while ago. If anybody out there hasn't tried one, it's a very unique, cool amp. It's got a great dirty, you know, if you like dirty gain kind of thing, but it's smooth in a cool way that's not a Dumble, leaning more in the Marshall direction, but it's not a Marshall. It's a totally unique circuit, I think. Really nice sound. And something I've thought about getting, actually, just to have as a flavor, you know. Kind of underrated, I think, to be honest. I just like the fatness and the smoothness of it while still being kind of Marshall-y, but different. You know, it's as different from a Marshall as an SLO 100, I would say, but in its own way. Do you know Oddly Freed? I've met him a couple times, but that's it. You know, just to say hello and stuff. Like long time ago. He would never remember me, I don't think. Yeah. He went away 10 years to get into the Satchel character. It's possible. Yeah. Okay. What else we got here? Do you use theory when constructing a guitar solo? Like kind of minimally. It's more about like what I'm hearing in my head. I use the main thing I do is trying to listen to, you know, like, what do I want to have happen right now? Like, where do I want to go with this? What would be a cool approach? What would that guy do? You know, those kinds of things more than theory, you know, and then I'll kind of fall back on the theory and go, well, okay, playing that. It'd be neat to play the sixth here and hang on that for a minute and then resolve or something to a chord tone or whatever, you know. I'll think those things a little bit, but I'm following my ear way more. Herbert says, have you been using the Phil X Sonic Screech reach over lick? Not really. No, not really that much. I love Phil, but I don't know. I haven't done that for a while, but I will. I'll do more. How's your rehearsing EVH sounds going? It's fun. So what I did is I put everything in order in Transcribe. If I had a little bit more gumption, what I would probably do is export all the tracks out somehow and put them all in Logic or in a playlist in iTunes, all in order so that I could play them. But to be honest, it's just kind of like, that sounds like a lot of work. So I put them in order in a folder in Transcribe, and I'll open up all the files of all the songs, and then I'll just play each one, and then I'll just close each one as I go. And that works better because then I can individually, like, if I like, okay, I want to loop the solo, work on that a little bit, I can do that in Transcribe, and so it works good. But also the nice thing in Transcribe is that you can tune the tracks, because you know how Van Halen records is like well, okay, by 1984 it's like they're using a tuner, maybe even earlier, but so many of the early stuff, it's like, especially the first two albums, it's in between E and E flat. It's they were just tuning to themselves. They didn't use tuners, I don't think. Eddie would tune, and then Mike could probably tune to him, and they'd go and cut. No clicks, no tuners, just rock and roll. But that makes it hard for us if we're trying to jam to the tracks later. So I find in Transcribe it's real easy for me to, like, generally speaking, in Transcribe, the +40, -40 cents function, I got to bring that down to like -30 or 35 on almost every track to pull the track down, because they are right in between E and E flat, really. You know, it's crazy. So crazy, man, crazy. So I can do that on every song and then store it like that. And then when I open it up again, it's already in there and I don't need to mess with it. And then I can run song to song to song relatively quick with this method. Yeah. Does the PT100 really have delay built in like the plugin? No, and it doesn't have a noise gate like the plugin. One thing that kind of bothers me about the plugin is that the noise gate is always active when you first open the plugin. I don't necessarily want that, but there's a noise gate in there and a delay, but you can just turn it off if you don't want to use it. Will you be using the PT15, the Quad Cortex, in Classic Rock Show? You know, I don't know about the Quad Cortex. I don't think so. For that, I'll probably just do what I did the last time, which is bring, it's more than likely will be a PT15, which worked great the last time. It sounds great in the recordings. It's like that was totally successful. And maybe a 412 cabinet this time. That's what I'm thinking. A signature PT 412 cab with a PT15. That's what I'm thinking. Just for the on-stage fun. I'll probably use the direct out and not be miking the cab. So it'll just to be to rock on stage. But Quad Cortex, probably not. I'll probably not try and reinvent the wheel. Just PT15 cabinet, direct out to the house, use my pedal board, a lot of the sounds that I did the last time. But there's, of course, there's going to be some different material and stuff like that. So I'll have to work on some sounds and stuff like that. Maybe the pedals change up a little bit. I don't know. Some different guitars I think I'll be bringing this time. So we'll see about that. That'll be fun. How did Ed get the tapped harmonics so good in the intro to Mean Streets? You just kind of have to, if I had a setup here, I don't think I can, maybe I can get something going if I, let me see if I can get something going fast enough to make sound. And I'll answer another question while the quad cortex warms up like a tube amp. Perhaps you can hear that little ground buzz that just started. There's a bit of a ground buzz that goes away for some reason when I first turn on the quad cortex and I have it plugged in. There, just went away. Kind of interesting. It's like a little ground loop thing that happens or something, but then it goes away as soon as the thing starts warming up. So this part, the tapping thing, I don't know if I can angle the camera very good on this, but the tapping, it's been the hardest thing, one of the hardest Eddie Van Halen things for me to try and get. Can you guys hear that okay? Always, you can hear it. I've almost got it, but not quite, So it's that middle part where you got to go. It's really hard for me to get that smooth. So that's something I'm still working on. And I'm not afraid to admit it. How'd I do? Rate it. Out of the gate. No warm up. Did I do okay? So, did harmonics. Let me take this off the screen here so you can see my hands better. Let's do a little lesson. All right. It's really hard to play slow. It's really hard. There it is. Nah. Still working on it. What do you think? Give me a rating here. Somebody give me the thumbs up. 110. Somebody. 12. Holy crap. I passed the audition. Wow, you guys seem to. All right. Cool. Yeah, it's a. How the hell did he come up with that? It's one of the weirdest things. Like this thing, I'll tell you what, I showed this to Britt and she's a drummer, and she got it in 3 minutes. She was like, oh, you mean like this? She's way more of a drummer than a guitar player. I was like, holy shit. She's like, well, I play the drums. You just asked me to tap a rhythm. I was like, oh, that makes sense. And Eddie started on the drums. So I don't know how else I don't even know how to teach this. But it's just really hard for me to get it as smooth as him. If I feel like the day before, like I can't do that, I'm just going to do something else and then go into mean streets, because I guess I'm giving it away that we're playing mean streets. That part I can always kind of do. Play the next part. Now, this is one of those ones that if you really want to get it right, if you do the tuning on the B that puts it out of tune for a D chord, and then that's out of tune. So I think that he punched, because how the hell did he do it in tune? But these chords sound amazing. Because you got the B in there, right? Now let's do the funky parts. So I'll tune up again then. All right, enough of that. That's how I do cold. No warm up. Can't see the guitar. You can kind of see it, couldn't you? The wild horsey somebody's asking about. That's when you play. Three harmonics that are all very close, and then you bend the bar and they go against one another. Very fun stuff. Anyways. What else? You're hearing okay, so what you're hearing right now, you probably, I don't know if it sounds like crap through the mic or not, but it's that's the quad cortex pedal board. And what I did is I made a patch where I put a speaker sim on it. So normally I'm running out of 3 outputs on 3 cabinets. I'm just gonna mic the cabinets, but I did one so I could just play quiet through the monitors. So it's the exact same patch, but I put a speaker sim on it so I can run direct essentially in stereo. Right? Sorry, E string's flat. Oh, I forget. You know how you played Drop Dead Legs A lot of people do it with the whammy bar, but it's this ghost kind of slide. Whoop. Fun. Worth every penny, says Buzz. Thanks, man. EVH lessons. Can you do any Yngwie? No. I was never good at what he does. I can do more EVH stuff. Yeah. What else we got here? Well, that was fun. That was fun. I will say on the Quad Cortex, I did a pitch thing, so I can do that. This is the drop dead legs. On that, I have the pitch shifter, but then I've got the flanger on the board. I'm starting to warm up a little bit. That's about how long it takes for my hands to get like a little bit warm. You know, I need like 10 to 15 minutes, and that starts to sound like, all right, now I'm getting in the zone. What else we got here? Weed, says Stevie. Drop Dead Legs shows how good Eddie was as a rhythm player. Yeah, I mean, the groove is deep on Drop Dead Legs. For sure. It's amazing rhythm playing. I agree. Thanks so much, Buzz, for the big old super chat. I really appreciate it. Thanks, man. What amps did you capture for the EVH tones? It's the SL68 on 10, Braxall. That's what I used to do it. Just standard. I used the reactive load, and I did a direct capture. And it sounds great. I love it. When you hear it through cabs, you're like, damn, in a power amp, it's pretty cool, I must say. Yeah. What else? Do you prefer the EVH Bumblebee stripe guitar over the black Super Strat? You know what? Yeah, it's actually an easier playing guitar than the black one I have, which is a little more finicky and a little bit more kit feeling for sure. The black one I have could just use a little bit of love, you know. So, Candyman says, "Can you play the solo?" Well, I'll tell you what I've been trying to do is kind of, if I can find it here, the solo for Drop Dead Legs. Is that what you're talking about? I've been trying to get into kind of a, I think I have it here. Just one sec. I'm looking for, where is it? Panama. Oh, yeah, there it is. So in the end, I've been just trying to jam around with the style and get used to that. So let me turn up my guitar a little bit. You guys hear that okay? Oh. You know, just trying to get into the style and improvise. You know what I mean? And so as I get warm, I'll do that for like 10, 15 minutes and get into it. So I'll do something like that at the end, some kind of jam where I'm, you know, trying to flow for the next week or so. It's like the tapping outro is something that I'm trying to do, like a tapping thing. And I haven't done a lot of tapping in the last, you know, I don't know, 10, 15 years or something like that. So it's something that I'm still getting comfortable with, but it's getting there. Sorry. You know, I'm just trying to like play like that again because I haven't done that for a long time. But as you do it and you kind of, because he used to just sit and he'd, you know. So anyway, that's what I'm practicing this week, working on that stuff. In a couple of weeks when we do this show, it'll be rocking. Can't see your hands. Sorry about that. And sorry about the volume blast. That was a little much. Eardrums are kaput. Something in there go my eardrums. Sorry, I'll probably edit that out. The volume slider, as is, I don't know if you guys have that problem in iTunes where the slider kicks all the way up and then it just like, you know, that happens to me sometimes. There, it just moved right now, and I think it's this fucking thing, the Magic Mouse, which is sort of universally hated. But it's got control on the top of it, you know, and it like sometimes it does things when you release and it'll move a slider, and many times it's volume or whatever. Happens to me in Logic too, like it'll move faders and things. I'm like, what the, you know? So anyway, sorry about that. Where did you get the Van Halen backing tracks? Everything's on YouTube, man. Honestly, everything's on YouTube. So it's all out there. You can find it and then just, you know, find your way to get it and stuff and then play with it. So Robot says killer tones. Yeah, I do think it's 15 headphone users died that day. Sorry, man. Apologies. Okay, I've heard Dave say, perhaps out of context, capacitance is capacitance. Do you think cap type in a guitar circuit impacts tone? I don't think that the cap type really has a hell of a lot of, I mean, you mean as far as like the roll down of a tone control? I don't know. I don't think there's a lot to that, but I think capacitance is introduced by pots. As you know, like a 250K pot sounds darker than a 500, sounds darker than a 1 meg and all that, right? So there's that kind of capacitance. And with cables, it's definitely, I don't know, like you get different levels of capacitance in cables. Is definitely something you hear. It's like high-end loss. Some people say, oh, the mids are warmer or richer. And that's just high-end loss is what that is, you know. a cable like is lossy or not, and it's about how much high end that you lose. And kind of pots are sort of the same. Like if you wire up a kill switch in a SUR guitar, you know, the on-off switch that sends straight through the output jack from the bridge pickup that they have on some of their guitars. That's the lossy nature of the volume pot and the tone control that you're hearing. You know why Eddie didn't want tone controls on his guitars. You know, originally it was something he had to fight Hartley Peavy on. I don't know why Hartley Peavy would fight him on that. It's just like, dude, you don't have to put a friggin' tone control on your guitar if Eddie Van Halen doesn't want one, but he kind of insisted. And then Eddie started having them kind of on guitars after that. I mean, they're on a Wolfgang. It's like maybe he got used to them or something. I can't even remember right now. Just reminding myself, yeah, my Wolfgang has a tone control. I guess Eddie maybe got used to the sound or something, you know, having a tone control on the guitar. I don't think he ever used it. Why did he have that on his guitars? It's interesting. But anyways, what else we got here? I'm going to take a few more and then I'm going to jet, I think. Shut off all that pressure-sensitive touch control junk in your settings. Can you do that? I didn't know you could do that. Teach me things. Mouse stuff. Eddie had a lot of little tricks that weren't just tapping, those little unique phrases and weird noises, as well as tap slides. Yeah, there's a lot of like stuff in between. Like if I think about I gotta take the thing off the screen, the banner, so you can see what I'm doing. Let me think about this. One of the first things is that he did a lot for noises is you use the your fingers on your left hand to yank open strings. It has a different sound than if you do it with the pick. It's got a more, so I'm pulling with my left hand and then releasing. So like in DOA. Right? So if you listen to the little in-between stuff, this is a lot of the little slop that in his style makes a big difference. Just that nobody focuses on. Everybody's all about the licks and the tapping and this, that. So it's like all that little stuff and you can really hear it if you do it and transcribe and slow it down and focus on the parts. But so the solo. It's hard to play slow, but kind of the wildness of it all is like, and a lot of that is the sounds in between where he would yank the string, you know, when he's going from like a low position to a high position. That if you don't do that, it sounds too clean. The little, you know, the D string that he, and then it would do that thing, you know. And all that crap in the middle is kind of like a big part of that, where he was filling space with the dive bombs. I think he called it like it was like a car crashing, you know, like drive real fast and crash, and drive real fast and crash, you know, that kind of sound. And then another one that I talked about last week, and now that I've got a sound up, I might as well just show you, is that Somebody Get Me a Doctor solo. So. Chorus on, that's what it is. That part, right? That lick. There's like so much going on there that not a lot of people focus on. I thought about making a whole YouTube video about this, so I shouldn't be giving it away, but. So a rake down and then a rake up. You know, a lot of people might just go. right? But it's so there's all that rhythmic shit in there with the you know. And that, if you get the rakes, then it really starts to sound like it. And that stuff, of course, is just these little pull-offs that, you know. All that fun stuff. Yeah. Brian May avoids rakes, but he's got plenty of that's a bent tom, but he's got plenty of weird little cool little things in his playing too to fill the space, you know. I think you know what I'm saying? Hide your sheep, says Tom. Yeah, I'm just a spot on the horizon. That's right. It's hard to play it slow. It is. His licks are also hard to play slow. You know what the thing is? When you try and break them down, you lose the. There has to be this frenetic kind of like energy about it, or it doesn't sound right. You know, it's like you have to kind of do it like you know. Oh, what is it? You know what I mean? Like you just have to. It's like it's crazy shit going on, you know, and you have to get that crazy element into it in order for it to sound right. Like a almost ready to fall off the rails thing. And when you watch him play the solos live, he never did it the same way twice. I mean, he was always like kind of. It was just like, you know. I mean, youth, you know. I don't know, just that crazy kind of. I mean, we know there's probably some substances involved in the early days and stuff like that too. But it was like this wild energy, right? You know, that was a big part of it, right? So, and if you learn the stuff and then you kind of try and get into, you know, that you have to go for it like driving through a snowstorm, pretty much. Like if you don't do that, it doesn't sound right. And so it's got to be this kind of. When you saw the way that they would hit the stage, you know, it was like that wild friggin' energy, you know, like how else do you play that stuff, you know? You know? Whatever, you know, it's just you go, you know, that's how you do it. Lay into the shit, and it's like a, you know, it's exhausting, especially at 50. There's a super chat up there that I missed. I see. Kick ass. You should incorporate your guitar and PC audio into your live stream. Using your mic and the sound of the room has phase issues, but your examples and playing during the stream add a whole new dynamic. Oh no, do I have to do more of this? If I could figure out how to do it and get this sound pretty good, then it would be. I know it's just coming through the mic, and so it's probably not great, but. You know, whatever. Any good shows in LA coming up? I'm gonna go see Covet play my friend Yvette Young, and I'm looking forward to that. It's sold out, I know that, but it's in Anaheim. Looking forward to seeing her kill it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Who else is playing? I don't know if there's anything else coming up in LA or not. Awesome EVH have ordered some Thornbuckers. Sweet. Fareed, thanks for getting the pickups. I do appreciate it. Thanks, man. Christopher says, oh, that was the that super chat. I got that one. Okay, cool. Well, it's 1:52. I might as well go till 2, and I'll do 8 more minutes, and I'll get out of here. But what else we got here? Let's see. Let's see. What pick are you using? The wrong one right now. The pick that I really like using for this, I can't actually find right now, but it's the EVH picks. I've ordered some, so they'll be here soon. They're similar to this one, this nylon one. Ah, that feels better right away. That's better. That one I gotta be warm to play. But when you're doing things like that, I really like the thin pick. It's weird. I'm just getting used to. I'm getting used to enjoying the. It's just a little softer, and you can be a little more wild with the pick, and it has a cool sound. But where's the 78 Frankenstrat? That guitar is here in the, oh, oops, Dream Theater, somebody's saying. Let's see if that's your kind of thing. I like Dream Theater. It's back there. I think guitar's a little bit of a bear, to be honest. I never got it to the point where I was really happy with it, setup-wise, and it's difficult. This guitar is much easier to play for this stuff, to be honest. So much easier. So yeah, but it's a neat guitar. I may consider selling it, actually. It probably just needs a really good setup. Yeah. Oh yeah, Steve Vai's touring. That's right. He's got a tour. So somebody got tickets for his show in February. I'll be away then. I'll be in England doing classic rock show. So yeah. Any tips for entering in MI? Sorry, I don't know what that means. Do you mean Musicians Institute or Michigan? Like, do you mean maybe going to MI or something like that? I'm not really. Tell me what you mean, Hugo. The school? Yeah. What else we got here? There's a fellow with a Ramble Effects Marble Drive looking at Bogner Ecstasy Blue. Similar pedals, kind of. They're both Marshall in a box, but the Bogner will give you a little bit more variety, I think. I don't know if it does Plexi quite as good. I mean, the Ramble's great. They're both really good and similar, but the Bogner gives you a wider range of voicing options for different amps and things. Probably about a similar gain amount or level, I would say. Would the MX5 be a good choice over the new X MG30? They're similar. I mean, the headrush is, I don't want to say, I mean, they're both good. I mean, the headrush is probably slightly more deluxe. You know, the new X is nice too, for in a similar price range, you know. But the headrush is probably got a, you know what I'm saying. Yeah, in my opinion. What is the Brown sound? I think that was just something the press picked up on that you know, became synonymous with Eddie's Marshall tone, you know, which changed a lot over the years, really. But you know, I think that he originally said that he talked about it in reference to Alex's snare drum sound in an interview, but it got picked up as him talking about his guitar sound, and so people started calling it the Brown sound. You know, that high gain Eddie thing. Akira Takasaki is the Eddie of Japan. Yeah, pretty much. I would say that that's true. Looking forward to your EVH, sorry, 2 notes cabs. Which would you go to for the EVH thing? Well, the black back in, I already told, I told you. I wasn't supposed to do that. That's all right. One of the cabs that we did is one of my black back cabs, so which is pretty cool because I don't know if they have a cabinet that has those or not. But you know, so they're old G12M from the 70s in a 60B, 1960B straight cab. So I would go for that with a couple 57s and just do the 2 57s positioned as he would have, you know, and tune it in until you get what you want. And the nice thing with the 2 notes software too is you've got the EQ in there and you can tweak it and stuff. Maybe even add a little bit of reverb, but that's kind of the no-brainer, you know. Yeah. From what do you live on in England? You know, in England, Horst, I actually have a pretty good time eating there. I like Indian food, and they've got amazing Indian food. There's lots of great Thai food I've found in the UK. There's quite a bit of great food there now. Like in the last 15 years, let's say, you know, you can get all kinds of good food in the UK. There's pretty, like, one thing that's great is the readily available kind of like, you know, good sandwiches and stuff like that you can get in shops. I mean, even going to like, you know, Tesco and getting the lunch special or whatever. They've got gluten-free sandwiches. I can go grab, you know, one of those and survive, you know, lunch for the day for like 4 pounds or whatever, you know. But like, I love the Indian food, you know, it's really good stuff. And I love the Thai food I found there too. Those are 2, you know, sushi, not a ton of great sushi. There's a few places that I found. But there's pretty forward-thinking, you know, there's a gastronomical culture over there is happening too. You know, there's lots of great restaurants and stuff you can find. I found, I don't know, in the UK. Not as difficult as it used to be. Yeah, curry. It's like the staple there, you know. That's right, James. It's like, you know, guess who works for Tesco? You do, Steve. Indian food gives me the brown sound. Ah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Here's Evan. After a nice Indian meal. Do you like beer? I love beer, man, but I can't really drink it that much because I don't do gluten. So that's a problem. But England's got a ton of great cider, so there's that, you know. That gets me by. Well, guys, I suppose I should split. But as I mentioned earlier, just reminding one more time, the great Kim Mitchell next week. Canadian legend, rock and roll legend. So I'll get some good questions together for him. You guys get your questions together for him. If you're Canadian, you of course know what a big deal talking to Kim will be for me. If you're not, be prepared to be a fan of he's got a new, you know what's great is he's putting out great new music too. His new song that I just heard recently, new single, it's either called Best I Ever Had or Best I Never Had. I'm forgetting now, but it's just a fantastic song with great guitar tone and great guitar parts, and that signature, you know, Peter and him singing on it, and it's just the sound that it's so great. So anyways, Kim Mitchell next week on my show. Can't wait to talk to him. And thank you guys so much for being here every week on your super chats and stuff. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you next week around 11:30 a.m. We'll have a good old time with Mr. Mitchell. Okay, take care. Thank you.